Yeah. Thank you, Utkarsh. So we can now talk about your interview experience, like the number of rounds and the duration of those rounds mainly, and what was the focus of each and every round. If you could tell us about those things.
Sure. So let me now start with the number and duration of each round.
Yeah.
So there were three selection rounds of this company. One first was of course resume shortlisting. The second and third rounds lasted for around 50 minutes and 20 minutes respectively. So let me now talk about the type of rounds. So first definitely was resume shortlisting based on students' experience in analog and mixed signal circuit designing and the relevant projects. Second was the technical interview, and the third was the HR round. So the typical technical questions. Let me now share my experience on the typical technical questions asked by the interviewer. So they did not focus much on the basics of analog concepts. The panel of four interviewers mainly focused on one's experience in analog circuit and IC designing in terms of their research work in the labs, paper publications, course projects, and dominantly on the MTP, research work, and the IC tape outs. So, owing to the English accent difference and to ensure the purity in communication and understanding, I prepared a presentation of my lab research work on SERDES system and my tape out of the same. That way, I found it very easy to explain everything articulately to them. In the end, they were quite satisfied with the work that I had done and were able to understand what I was trying to convey to them easily. So then they asked questions from my course projects in analog, like related to OTA design, LNA design, VCO design, etc. So after that, we had some normal discussions like related to my zeal of working in Taiwan, food, work, and normal life in Taiwan, etc. So that session was quite general, and it seemed that as if I were talking to one of my best friends. So they were quite, involving or engrossed in the normal talks, apart from the technical, keeping the technical talks aside. So they were just talking like a normal friend. So we talked about the culture of Taiwan, and I also talked about the culture of India. They showed their desire of visiting Taj Mahal once in the future. so. So in the same interview, they made it pretty clear, hopefully to all the shortlisted turned up candidates, whether they have been selected or not. So let me now talk about the HR round. The third round was the HR round, obviously, for the ones who cleared the technical interview. It was not that heavy, stereotypical, and conventional HR round that we are familiar with. So in the panel, there was an HR from the headquarters in Taiwan and one from the Indian branch who enacted a mediator between the Taiwanese HR and me so that there is no communication gap. Initially, they asked me my name and some basic stuff related to me, like my hobbies, interests, etc. So the Taiwanese HR had prepared a presentation which he presented us to familiarize us with the Taiwanese culture, places in Taiwan, compensation, and most importantly, the Indian cuisine restaurants available in Taiwan. Because of course, the Indians cannot live without the spices and Indian cuisine. We always look for that. We cannot survive on what they eat. Uh, so it's work culture, working environment, communication with the locals, etc. So in both technical and HR rounds, the interviewers seem quite humble and generous. So this is my overall experience in the technical and HR rounds of MediaTek.
Yes. Yes, Utkarsh. So, Utkarsh, in the technical round, as you mentioned that you had prepared presentation on your master's project.
Yes.
So I think this is a good practice, and people they have also suggested this thing that you should prepare a presentation. So, like, means how one should prepare about it? Should it be like number of slides? If you could talk in detail about the presentation mainly.
So the presentation, basically, I had kept it very small and concise. It had only 4 to 5 slides as far as I remember. So I mainly focused on my master's project. I did not include any other thing in that, like course projects or publication. I did mention my publications as well. So I initially began with the introduction to my project and the gist and the aim of my project. Then I very briefly wrote one sentence of what I was doing in that project that time, and the IC integrated chip that we taped out, the layout, the picture or the layout of that I pasted in the last slide. So the presentation was not replete of too much of text. It hardly had any text. I explained everything verbally. So that way, visually, so it was more or less visual to the interviewers. So so that's why through the visuals, through the pictures, and the and my verbal explanation, they were quite satisfied. They were able to understand very well. So you do not need to include everything that you have done, like whole chunk of statements, jargon content in your presentation. It should be concise so that so that you can easily engross the interviewers into your presentation and your communication. So it should not be more than 4 to 5 slides. Is more than enough. If otherwise it will take the whole day to cover the entire thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Utkarsh. So, Utkarsh, another aspect, like means in case of foreign companies, sometimes we also get to listen from our seniors that you should learn a bit of language of that country.
Yes.
So, in your case, did you also do the same thing? Like you learned a bit of Mandarin?
No, I haven't learned Mandarin as of now. They did not even emphasize to learn Mandarin. So, yeah, I'm thinking. So, communication with the colleagues at MediaTek would not be that much difficult, I suppose. But communicating with the locals would pose a
Yes.
little bit of problem to me. So, yes, I will think of learning some, not in depth uh, I will thinking of learning. I will think of learning Mandarin after I have graduated. But to that extent, I am able to communicate with the locals. No, and I'm able to understand what is written on the boards or the pamphlets.
Yes.
So yeah, I will do that. I will do that. It is. I think it will be important for me to learn
Yeah.
Mandarin.
Yeah, means while interview you did not learn Mandarin, but since you will be joining or you will be visiting Taiwan, so then it becomes a must to learn the basics of at least that language.
Yes, 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 yes.
Utkarsh. So, Utkarsh, in your case, like already mentioned that there were two different round, technical round and the HR round, and the HR round was somewhat different as compared to conventional HR round. So, in case of technical round, you mentioned that they were mainly talking about your MTP and some the courses which you have mentioned already. So, like, was the questions too conceptual or some basic question? Means what was their focus actually?
So in the MTP, they just asked me to run them through in through from them through all the nuances of the project of what I've worked on or what I did in my project. So so that was so I explained everything through my presentation. In when it came to the course projects, so they asked just basics of my projects, like some analog concepts were definitely they definitely touched upon some analog concepts related to those particular projects. Like for operational transconductor amplifier, they asked me about little bit on slew rate or I think they asked on us about the compensation that I the post zero compensation that I performed, but not they did not dive much into the course projects, every nuance of the course project. So this is they touched upon the basics of what I did in the course projects. So it was but definitely they questioned on the nuances of what I did in the MTP master's project. So they asked some new some analog concepts related to what I worked in the project.
Yes, yes, Utkarsh.
So you
So,
should be
yeah.
so you should be well versed with the analog concepts.
Okay. So, like in technical round, any means anything about your publications? Like since so you have two publications, any questions on that, or did the publications help you in your interview?
Yes, definitely. The publications surely did help me in my interview. Our Soradeep, my lab mate, and me recently published the conference papers in IEEE renowned conferences like ICECS and VLSID on our research work in CERTES, which MediaTek also came for. So it definitely added to my chances of getting selected. So they did touch upon. So MediaTek also emphasizes on research. So they did ask about what conference I published in and what I published, what we actually published. So they did. They were quite happy with the publication. Yes. So of course, MediaTek also focuses on, since it emphasizes on research. So they also publish a lot of papers each year. So that was quite that basically added to my chances of getting selected. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So means it's good to have publications on your resume.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Utkarsh. So Utkarsh, any tricky situation or any tricky question in the first round, the technical round?
No, there was no any tricky question asked in the interview, like some core analog concept that basically was asked in my previous interviews. But they did not care about diving into the core basics of analog circuits, which obviously I prepared for, which obviously I prepared, but they mainly focused on your research work, on your MTP and the course project and publications. So yeah, they did not ask too much of tricky questions that one should be scared of.
Yes, yes. Or means any tricky question in your HR round, like you mentioned that in HR round they were mainly walking you through the offer or maybe the Indian restaurant which are available there. So any tricky questions or something like that in HR round?
No, 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 no. So it was as why as I mentioned, it was not that type of conventional HR round. They mainly introduce us to the work culture and the working environment of Taiwan in Taiwan at MediaTek. That's it.
Yes, yes, yes. So Utkarsh, any language barrier or means you felt any difficulty in conveying your thoughts to them or vice versa?
Yes, definitely. When I was asking questions to the interviewer or the HR who was basically from Taiwan, I did face difficulty in explaining what I meant, and also he could not understand my pronunciation of my name. So that's why there was also an HR from the Indian branch who basically acted a mediator between me and the HR. So he then if because of in the event of a communication gap, he basically helped the HR at the headquarters to understand what I was trying to convey. So I did face difficulty. There was no English problem, but there was an accent problem. There was an
Yes.
accent communication gap because of the accents, different accents. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So any advice or tips like how to deal with this, or did you take any extra measures to overcome this?
Okay, let me start by saying that for the placements, it is imperative that one begins the preparation at least 5 to 6 months before the tests and the interviews are scheduled, so that one is in the firm position to crack the placement tests or the tests of the companies that they aim for. So for analog circuits, there are some books and lectures that one must read and go through thoroughly, like CMOS analog circuits by Behzad Razavi, RF microelectronics by Razavi and Thomas H. Lee, CMOS analog IC design lectures by Professor Nagendra Krishnapura from IIT Madras, mixed signal lectures by Professor Shanti Pavan from IIT Madras, and a design of operational amplifiers and analog circuits by Sergio Franco, network circuits by Di Carlo and Lin, and another by Hayat and Kemerli. So these books and lectures are enough to tackle any problem in the tests and the interviews of the companies like Qualcomm, Texas Instruments, Samsung, MediaTek, Analog Devices, MaxLinear, etc. So one must have gone through these texts before the tests and interviews. Secondly, I advise all the juniors who are bound to appear for the placements this year to be in constant touch with their seniors, have discussions related to their strategy, and plan to get through the tests and the interviews, know about their tests and interviews experiences. The input from the seniors proves highly fruitful, which help the juniors a lot. So thirdly, all the juniors must prepare a weekly or rather daily schedule of their study distribution. That is, what one must study for how much time every day, so as to complete the syllabus in the stipulated amount of time, and spare 1 or 2 months for the revision which is absolutely important. As if one does not do that, one is tend to forget what was studied during the test and in the interviews. Fourthly, all must cover up the maximum possible last few years companies' test papers, which are going to be provided by their seniors to them thoroughly so as to get a rough idea of the type of questions and the targeted companies ask so that the students are well prepared. Fifthly, all the juniors must prepare a good or decent resume. It should be appealing to the interviewer in terms of the inclusion of relevant projects and courses, POR, and publications. It should not be such that it should be such that it is tacitly rhetoric and complements one's targets and company's requirements. So also they should be well versed with everything they include in the resume. The resumes of the seniors will also be provided to the juniors so that they can go through them and learn how to write a good resume. Hence, the juniors should have a look at the resumes of the seniors to a greatest extent possible to get a good idea. I know there is a lot to cover for the placements, but the phrase "well begin is half done" stands here stout very well. If you start your initial preparations well, then half of the work is done. The next half is just sticking to that preparation and cover up the syllabus diligently in time. So this is my advice to the students who are appearing for the placements this year. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You have laid out a map or a action plan which one should follow. And as we say that placements at IIT Bombay is a semester long affair, so
Yes.
you need to devote 5 6 months.
And one should also try to should work hard enough to get through the placements in the first or 2 days of the placement season, because as the time passes by and if you are left unplaced, the pressure builds up. You always bewildered and troubled by multiple questions or the conundrums which you might not be able to answer properly. So of thinking how you would be able to get into the company, and the all of the negativities then start to fill in your heart, flood in your heart. So just work hard and then you will be through your dream company.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, Utkarsh. So, Utkarsh, we can talk means another aspect of this placement season, means the placement season which we all have faced. Like this time, everything was in online mode, and earlier we used to have things in offline mode. So, like, what is your advice on this? Like, how one should prepare for this online mode of placements? Or
See, of course, uh, preparations. I think when it comes to being interviewed through an online medium or the offline medium, the preparations should not be changed. It should not be altered, whether it is an online, presuming that it is going to be an online interview or if it is an offline interview. The preparations and everything remains the same. But the fact is that, of course, you should be comfortable with the online environment because everybody is new to this environment. This happened for the first time in the history that such campus placements were held through an online mode. Yes.
yes, Utkarsh. So, Utkarsh, then I think we have covered the things which we had planned actually, and we have covered more than that, in fact. So, any advice for your, definitely you have given a lot of good advice for your students. So any last message for them, those who will be applying for placement?
The last sentence I would like to say is that schedule well, multitask well, work hard, and get through your D company. That's it. Get through your dream company. That's it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, definitely. Your advice will be helpful for them, and your like the way you have cracked Miss MediaTek, and you could get placed in the very early stage of the placement, and the way in which you have also managed your profile, like you have achieved a lot of things, be it in terms of academics, publications, POR. So this thing will serve as a motivation for the upcoming students. They will also get to learn from your experience, and yeah, so it will be helpful for them. So yes.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you very much. Thank you for taking our time.
Welcome.
Yes.